Welcome back to Book Summary Podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into The Housemaid Is Watching by Frida McFadden.
Okay.
Psychological thrillers are always so popular. They really tap into, like, our deepest fears, don't they?
Absolutely.
This book is no exception. It's got all those twists and turns that leave you, like, looking over your shoulder.
For sure.
Let's unpack these opening chapters together.
Great.
Meet the characters and see what kind of unsettling hints McFadden drops about where this story's going to go.
Love it. What I find really effective right off the bat is how McFadden contrasts this, seemingly perfect picture of a family kind of achieving their dream with these subtle, almost insidious hints of trouble brewing beneath the surface. It's like watching a beautiful house start to crumble from the inside out.
Yeah, right. We meet Millie and Enzo, who have just bought this quaint former farmhouse on Long Island.
Right.
They're both excited.
Yeah.
But for different reasons.
Yeah.
Millie is fixated on the house itself.
Yeah.
Like it holds some key to their future happiness.
Right.
But Enzo is more laid back, more excited about the space.
Yeah.
And a chance for a fresh start. What struck you about this dynamic?
Well, it's not just excitement we see in Millie.
Right.
There's a lot of anxiety mixed in, especially about returning to Long Island. We get these glimpses of a past trauma that she experienced there, but the details are still kind of shrouded in mystery.
Right.
It makes you wonder right from the start,
oh, for sure.
What happened to her?
Yeah.
And how it might connect to, the events that unfold.
Oh, totally. And even though they, snag this house under asking price, it's clear they're, financially stretched.
Right.
So we've got this tension simmering beneath their excitement. Past trauma, financial strain, and a house that seems to hold more sway over Millie than it should.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect recipe for disaster, isn't it?
It is. And then you throw their kids into the mix.
Okay.
Nico, the 9-year-old. All energy, mischief, typical boy stuff.
Right.
But Ada, the 11-year-old daughter, is more serious, taking on a caretaker role, even at her young age.
Yeah.
Their reactions to the move highlight how stressful it is.
Right.
Even for a family that seems to, have it all together.
Exactly. Uprooting kids from their school and friends always adds another layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
And speaking of complex, let's talk about those neighbors. Have you ever had neighbors who just gave you a weird vibe?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Millie's got two that fit that bill perfectly.
Oh, yeah. First, there's Janice, living across the street in this house that's always dark.
Right.
She's always watching them, like a hawk.
Yeah.
McFadden uses this simple detail, a neighbor glancing out their window, to create this immediate sense of unease.
It is.
We instantly wonder, what's her deal? Why is she so fixated on this family?
It's so creepy. And then there's Suzette.
Oh, yeah.
The overly friendly neighbor. She's like the human embodiment of passive aggression,
Right.
Like, on the surface, she's all smiles and helpfulness.
Yeah.
But her words are laced with these subtle jabs, especially at Millie.
Right. She's constantly making these little comments that undermine Millie, pointing out the house's rustic charm in a way that just drips with judgment.
Oh, yeah.
And her flirtatious behavior towards Enzo.
It's so obvious.
It's so obvious. It's almost comical.
Right.
It's like she's trying to assert dominance, make Millie feel inadequate and unwelcome in this, supposed idyllic neighborhood.
It's getting major Mean Girl vibes, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's more than just annoying.
Right.
It adds to Millie's growing sense of isolation and unease.
Yeah.
She's starting to question their decision to move. Wonder if she's made a mistake.
Right.
And in contrast, Enzo is totally oblivious.
Yeah.
Caught up in his enthusiasm for their new life.
That contrast between their perspectives is so interesting. It hints at a potential crack in their relationship, this growing disconnect.
Okay.
Millie's anxieties are mounting.
Yeah.
While Enzo remains optimistic, almost willfully blind to the unsettling aspects of their new environment.
And then there's this huge red flag that McFadden throws at us.
Oh, yeah.
The house had absolutely no blinds.
What?
Like no
blinds.
Imagine moving into your dream home.
Oh my God.
And realizing you have zero privacy.
Yeah.
Especially with creepy Janice watching your every move.
That's terrifying.
It's enough to make anyone paranoid, right?
It is. That lack of privacy becomes this powerful symbol, right?
Yeah.
It reinforces that feeling of vulnerability, of being exposed to unseen eyes.
Right.
And it plays into our primal fear of the unknown.
Right.
We, along with Millie, are constantly looking over our shoulder wondering who's watching and why.
It's like living in a fishbowl, but instead of goldfish, you've got unsettling neighbors.
Right.
And maybe something more sinister lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
And speaking of sinister, let's talk about the title.
Okay.
The Housemaid Is Watching.
Yeah.
We haven't met a housemaid yet, so who are they talking about?
Right. The title's such a hook.
Yeah.
It immediately throws down this challenge to the reader.
Right.
Is it a literal housemaid? Is it Janice?
Yeah.
Or is it something more metaphorical?
Right.
Like the house itself, watching and judging its inhabitants.
It's like McFadden is dangling this mystery in front of us.
Yeah.
Knowing we can't resist taking the bait. And all this is happening before we even get to the real meat of the story.
Right.
Remember, we're just unpacking the opening chapters here. If you're loving this deep dive so far, hit that like button.
Yeah.
And subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more insightful discussions on your favorite books.
Absolutely. And don't forget, these seemingly ordinary events are all juxtaposed with that chilling prologue.
Oh, right?
Where we're thrown into this scene of bloody chaos.
Yeah.
We're left wondering who dies?
Right.
How did this seemingly idyllic life go so horribly wrong?
It's a brilliant way to hook the reader, right?
It is.
You get this glimpse of the terrifying endpoint.
Yeah.
And then you're pulled back to the beginning, watching as the pieces start to fall into place.
Yeah.
So what are your initial impressions of the story and the characters? What stood out to you the most?
For me, it's that contrast between the idyllic facade and the unsettling undercurrent. It's like watching a beautiful tapestry unravel thread by thread, revealing this darkness beneath its intricate design.
Right.
And Millie's character is so relatable.
Her anxieties are so palpable that you can't help but be drawn into her story.
I totally agree. We're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
But there's so much to unpack in The Housemaid Is Watching.
Absolutely.
Stick with us. We'll be back with part 2 of this deep dive soon.
Can't wait. You know, what's really interesting is how McFadden uses the setting itself to build this sense of unease. It's not just creepy neighbors. It's like the entire atmosphere of this seemingly perfect cul-de-sac that starts to feel claustrophobic and menacing.
It's like the American dream turned nightmare, right?
Yeah.
You expect this peaceful, suburban haven, but it's clear that darkness lurks beneath, the manicured lawns and freshly painted shutters.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they're new to the neighborhood just amplifies Millie's feelings of isolation, doesn't it?
Right. She doesn't have any established support system.
Right.
Any friends or familiar faces to turn to. She's completely reliant on Enzo, who seems oblivious to her growing anxieties.
Yeah.
And surrounded by these, watchful, potentially hostile neighbors.
Okay, so let's get back to those missing blinds.
Okay.
It's played for laughs initially, right?
Yeah.
Millie and Enzo are unpacking.
Yeah.
Totally overwhelmed. And it doesn't even occur to them that their giant picture windows have zero covering.
It's almost like a slapstick moment.
Yeah.
Highlighting their naivete and how unprepared they are for the reality of this house. But then, of course, it quickly turns sinister. They're essentially living in a display case.
Yeah.
Completely exposed to the prying eyes of Janice and anyone else who cares to look.
And, Millie can't help but imagine those eyes are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
She's already feeling vulnerable. And this just exacerbates her paranoia.
Yeah.
It's like being on stage all the time.
Right. Never able to, relax or let your guard down.
Yeah.
Do you think McFadden is using this, lack of privacy as a metaphor for something deeper?
That's a great question. It definitely makes me think about the pressure to perform the perfect life.
Right.
Especially in these, picture-perfect suburban settings.
Right.
You're constantly being, like,
Right.
observed and judged by your neighbors,
Yeah.
by society at large. And any crack in that facade,
Right.
any deviation from the norm
Yeah.
is immediately scrutinized.
Ooh, I like that. It's like Millie is literally and figuratively exposed.
Yeah.
Forced to confront her anxieties and insecurities
Right.
under the watchful gaze of others.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Suzette swooping in,
Oh, yeah.
offering to recommend a blind company.
Right.
She's not exactly subtle in her attempts to,
No.
like, insert herself into their lives, is she?
Not at all. And it's fascinating how she uses these, like, seemingly helpful gestures to further undermine Millie.
Uh-huh.
Her comment about Millie being pregnant when she's clearly not.
Right.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's a veiled insult.
Right.
Designed to make Millie feel self-conscious about her body, her perceived failures.
It's so manipulative, isn't it?
It is.
And it highlights that, like, underlying tension between women.
Right.
That competition for, like, status and approval.
Yeah.
Especially in these environments where appearances matter so much.
Uh-huh.
Suzette wants to be seen as the perfect wife.
Oh, yeah.
The perfect hostess.
Right.
And she's threatened by anyone who might challenge that image.
Right. And she's constantly reinforcing Millie's outsider status.
Right.
That little exchange about in Long Island versus on Long Island is so telling. It's like she's using language itself as a weapon to establish her superiority and make Millie feel like she doesn't belong.
And it works. Millie's already feeling insecure.
Yeah.
And Suzette's subtle jabs just chip away at her confidence.
Yeah.
Then there's the dinner invitation.
Right.
Which, let's be honest, sounds like a total nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think Millie should have just politely declined?
Well, it's so hard to navigate those social expectations.
Right.
Especially when you're new to a community. Millie feels obligated to accept.
Right.
To, like, try and fit in, even though her gut is screaming at her to run in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And, of course, Suzette insists that Millie bring dessert, adding another layer of pressure.
It's all part of her game, isn't it?
It is.
Suzette wants to create this situation where she can showcase her perfect life, her culinary skills, her perfectly decorated home, all while subtly highlighting Millie's perceived shortcomings.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, what Suzette's ultimate goal is. Is she just a bored housewife seeking, you know, entertainment?
Right.
Or is there something darker at play, a more sinister motive behind her seemingly innocuous actions?
It's like she's a spider, slowly weaving this web around Millie, trapping her in a world of anxieties and insecurities.
Yeah.
And remember, she's the one who first tells Millie about Janice.
Right.
The mysterious neighbor who's always watching.
Yeah.
Is it coincidence? Or is she intentionally trying to scare Millie, like isolate her further?
It's definitely suspicious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It adds to that growing sense of paranoia, that feeling like everyone is watching, judging, waiting for Millie to make a mistake.
And as if creepy neighbors weren't enough, McFadden throws another, like, unsettling element into the mix.
Okay.
The house itself starts to feel almost sentient.
Yeah.
Like it's watching Millie and her family just as intently as Janice's. It's giving me chills just talking about it.
It's brilliant how McFadden blurs the lines between psychological thriller and, like, haunted house tropes. We get these subtle hints of something supernatural at play. Doors opening and closing on their own. Objects moving slightly out of place.
Right.
And Millie starts to feel like she's being followed. It's like there's another presence in the house with them.
It's enough to make anyone question their sanity. Right?
It is.
Is she imagining things? Is the stress of the move and the weird neighbors getting to her?
Yeah.
Or is there something truly malevolent lurking in the shadows of this house?
Right. And remember, we're seeing everything through Millie's eyes.
Right.
We're privy to her anxieties. Her growing sense of unease. So as readers, we're left wondering, like,
Right.
Is she a reliable narrator? Are we getting the full story?
Yeah.
Or is she, like, misinterpreting events, letting her fear distort her perception of reality?
Ooh, that unreliable narrator angle is so intriguing.
It is.
It adds another layer of complexity to this story. We can't fully trust Millie's perspective.
Right.
Which makes us even more invested in uncovering the truth.
Right.
We're constantly questioning what's real and what's imagined.
Yeah.
Just like she is.
Exactly. And that uncertainty is what keeps us hooked.
Right.
We're on this journey of discovery alongside Millie, sifting through the clues, trying to, like, separate fact from fiction.
Right.
And McFadden is a master of dropping those little hints, those breadcrumbs of suspicion that lead us down all sorts of dark and twisty paths.
It's like we're playing a game with the author.
Right.
Trying to outsmart her.
Yeah.
Figure out the ending before she reveals it.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of twists and turns, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Does Millie ever confront Janice about her constant staring? Does she try to find out what's going on with Suzette's strange behavior?
Well, Millie does try to address her anxieties.
Okay.
But her attempts are often met with, like, denial or dismissal. Enzo, for example, brushes off her concerns about Janice, telling her she's just being paranoid.
Right.
And Suzette deflects any attempts to, like, confront her passive-aggressive behavior, turning on the charm, acting like Millie is being overly sensitive.
It's so frustrating.
It is.
It's like she's being gaslighted. You know, made to feel like her feelings are invalid, that she's the one who's overreacting. And this, of course, just pushes her further into isolation, further into doubt.
It's a classic tactic of abusers to make their victims question their own sanity, their own perceptions of reality. And this dynamic is really starting to take its toll on Millie.
Okay.
She's losing sleep. Her anxiety is through the roof.
Right. And she's starting to withdraw from her family.
Yeah.
Retreating further into herself.
It's heartbreaking to watch her, like, unravel.
It is.
Especially as those, like, creepy incidents in the house continue. Does she find any, like, evidence to support her theories about the house being haunted, or is she just, like, spiraling deeper into paranoia?
Well, this is where McFadden really ramps up the suspense.
Oh, okay.
Millie starts to do some digging into the history of the house.
Right.
Hoping to find some explanation for the strange things that are happening.
Okay.
And what she uncovers is a series of tragic events that took place within those very walls.
Ooh, I love a good backstory. What kind of tragic events are we talking about?
Hold on to your hats.
Okay.
Because it's about to get seriously creepy.
Okay.
Millie discovers that the house has seen its fair share of death and misfortune.
Right.
There was a devastating fire
that claimed the lives of a family, like, decades ago. And then there's a string of unexplained deaths and disappearances over the years.
Right.
People who lived in the house and then just vanished without a trace.
No way.
Yeah.
So it's not just a haunted house. It's a house with a seriously dark and disturbing past.
Right.
And I bet those stories just fuel Millie's paranoia even more.
Oh, yeah.
She's probably thinking, like, am I next? Is my family cursed now that we live here?
Exactly. It's like the house is a character in itself, this, like, brooding, sinister presence that's been feeding off the misery of its inhabitants for generations.
Right.
And it raises the stakes because now it's not just about creepy neighbors or unexplained noises. Millie is starting to fear for her family's safety. She's wondering if there's some malevolent force at work, some curse that's attached to the house itself.
That's terrifying. It's like she's stumbled into this, like, dark fairy tale. Yeah. But instead of a happy ending, there's just a growing sense of dread. And the promise of something truly horrific on the horizon.
Right.
And speaking of horrific, remember that bloody prologue?
Oh, yeah.
We're still left wondering who's dead and how they ended up that way.
Right. McFadden keeps circling back to that gruesome image, reminding us that something truly awful is going to happen. Yeah. And it makes us race through the pages, desperate to find out, like, who meets this grisly end, and who's responsible.
It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck.
Right.
We know something terrible is coming, but we can't look away.
Yeah.
And Millie's increasing paranoia is like a mirror reflecting our own fears and anxieties. We're right there with her, feeling the walls closing in, the darkness creeping closer.
And just when you think it can't get any creepier,
right,
McFadden throws another twist into the mix. Millie's investigation into the house's history leads her to uncover some shocking secrets about her own family's past.
Oh, wow.
Secrets that connect them to the house in a way she never could have imagined.
Whoa. Family secrets. This just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, it does.
What kind of secrets are we talking about?
Yeah.
Is there a connection to one of those past tragedies? Is her family somehow intertwined with the, dark history of this house?
Well, that's where we'll have to leave you hanging for now.
Okay.
If you're loving this deep dive and want to hear all the juicy details about those family secrets, make sure you're subscribed to Book Summary Podcast. And stay tuned for part 3.
Okay.
We promise it's a wild ride.
Okay, so we left off with Millie discovering that her own family has, a connection to this house with its seriously creepy history.
Yeah.
What did she find out?
Well, remember those unexplained disappearances Millie uncovered? It turns out one of them hits very close to home.
Okay.
Her own grandmother worked as a maid in this house.
A maid?
Yeah, back in the 1950s.
Wow.
And one day, she just vanished.
What?
No trace, no explanation.
So it's not just some random historical connection.
Right.
Millie's own blood was directly touched by.
Yeah.
The mystery of this house.
Exactly.
That's got to be both terrifying and fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly your family history isn't just names on a tree. It's part of this, unsolved mystery.
Exactly. And as Millie digs deeper into her grandmother's story, it's not just the disappearance that's unsettling.
Right.
She starts to notice these eerie parallels between her grandmother's life and her own.
Okay.
Both drawn to this house.
Right.
Both experiencing strange events within it.
Wow.
It almost feels like the house is reaching out across time.
Right.
Repeating some dark pattern.
Okay, that's sending shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
It's like the house isn't just haunted by random spirits. It's got this, specific agenda tied to Millie's lineage.
Yeah.
That makes those creepy incidents
feel
way more targeted.
Yeah.
Like something is trying to manipulate her specifically.
It does. And it completely transforms how we view those neighbors.
Right.
Are they just quirky?
Yeah.
Or do they know something about Millie's family history, maybe even playing a role in this whole thing?
Right. Suddenly everyone becomes suspect.
Exactly.
Suzette's snide remarks and Janice's constant watching take on a whole new meaning. It's like, are they just weird neighbors?
All right.
Or are they part of some, grand conspiracy connected to this house and Millie's past?
Yeah, it's suspicious.
Ugh, I'd be losing sleep, for sure.
And remember, Millie's already on edge.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the strange happenings in the house.
Right.
Those seemingly random events, a door creaking open, an object moved, now feel like messages, warnings, or maybe even taunts from whatever entity is connected to her grandmother's disappearance.
So it's not just about Millie's mental state anymore.
Right.
We've got this potential supernatural force messing with her.
Yeah.
Possibly connected to these neighbors who may or may not have ulterior motives.
Right.
It's like layers of a psychological onion, but each layer is more terrifying than the last.
It is.
Did Millie find any, concrete proof of anything? Or is it all just, unsettling feelings and coincidences?
That's the genius of McFadden's writing.
Yeah.
She walks this tightrope between the psychological and the supernatural. So we're constantly questioning what's real and what's paranoia.
Yeah.
Millie finds clues
Okay.
that seem to confirm her suspicions.
Right.
But then there are events that make her doubt her own sanity. It's like the house is playing with her, deliberately keeping her off balance.
That's so frustrating. But also incredibly effective. In terms of keeping the reader hooked, we're right there with Millie. Desperate for answers.
Right.
Trying to figure out who or what to trust. It's like that feeling when you're watching a scary movie.
Yeah.
And you want to shout at the character.
Right.
Like, don't go in there.
Yeah.
But they can't hear you.
Exactly. And as the tension ratchets up, McFadden does something really interesting with time. The lines between the past and the present start to blur.
Okay.
Millie's nightmares are filled with images of her grandmother. She starts seeing glimpses of her in the shadows of the house.
Wow.
It's like the past is bleeding into the present, threatening to consume her.
Wow, that's so spooky. It's not just that the house holds a dark history.
Right.
It's like the house itself is using that history to torment Millie.
Yeah.
Those echoes of her grandmother become another layer of fear,
Right.
making it even harder to tell what's real and what's imagined. Talk about a psychological pressure cooker.
And all of this builds to this like incredibly intense climax where Millie finally confronts the truth about her family's past and the forces at play in the house.
Okay.
I can't give away the details, but let's just say McFadden delivers on all the suspense and twists she's been building throughout the book.
Okay, no spoilers, but does she find out what happened to her grandmother? And like, who or what is the housemaid that's been watching all this time?
Yeah.
We got to get some resolution here.
You do get answers.
Okay.
And in a way that's both shocking and satisfying.
Okay.
All the threads, the creepy neighbors, the house's history, those family secrets, they all weave together into a conclusion that makes you want to. Like, go back and reread the whole book, spotting the clues you missed the first time.
Ooh. That's what I love about a good thriller.
Yeah.
When it all comes together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you never saw it coming.
Right.
So for listeners who haven't read the book yet, what's the one thing you'd tell them to watch out for as they go through it?
Pay attention to the seemingly mundane details.
Okay.
McFadden is a master of foreshadowing. A casual remark. A seemingly insignificant object. It might all come back later with a whole new meaning. It's like she's challenging you to solve the puzzle alongside Millie.
I love that. It's like having a secret conversation with the author. Trying to decode those, like, hidden messages.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely adding The Housemaid Is Watching to my reading list now.
It's a good one.
And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that subscribe button.
Please.
And check out Book Summary Podcast for more insightful discussions on your favorite reads.
We've got a whole library of suspenseful stories waiting to be explored.
Right, and we love hearing your thoughts.
Yes.
So leave a comment.
Yeah.
And let us know what other books you'd like us to deep dive into. Happy reading.